A House Built on Mirrors. Chapter 1. Two Cups, Two Shadows. Morning in Ethan and Claire's house always began the same way. 2 cups of coffee, 2 spoons of sugar, 2 shadows moving across the table. Their kitchen looked like a magazine spread too neat to feel alive. The ficus by the window never shed a leaf. The pattern of the tiles aligned perfectly, and a list on the fridge dictated their rhythm. Monday gym, Tuesday groceries, Wednesday dinner at Julia and Mark's. Julia was Claire's younger sister, 2 years apart, but seemingly the elder in every way. Her words always carried the certainty of someone who knew how to build with them walls when needed, bridges when wanted. Mark, her husband, was the kind of man who made everyone laugh and hid behind that laughter when exhaustion crept in. Ethan used to joke that dinner at Julia's was a family therapy session served with bechamel sauce. Claire would smile, brush a strand of hair from her face, and ask, "Did you buy the wine?" He'd answer, "Of course," thinking that wine was the only oil keeping their mechanisms from rusting. The machinery of their marriage still turned, but quietly, politely, like an engine that had forgotten how to roar. Sometimes Ethan stared into the coffee grounds at the bottom of his cup, trying to read them like a map. He'd flip the cup over, wait for a sign, but instead of omens, his phone would buzz Julia checking what time they'd arrive, or Mark joking about overcooking the pasta. Life moved on its rails, smooth and predictable, and none of them yet knew that the track ahead led straight to a bridge with no rails at all. Chapter 2. The First Crack. It began one ordinary Wednesday. On their way to Julia and Mark's, rain poured so suddenly that Claire sprinted for the front door, leaving Ethan with the grocery bags. Julia opened the door, wrapped in a navy robe, her hair pinned with surgical precision, her face all focus and composure. "Don't stand in the draft," she said, stepping aside. Ethan followed her into the apartment, an exhibit of curated perfection. Books arranged by color, throws matched by texture, lamps placed in exact symmetry. Mark moved between stove and table like a conductor missing his orchestra. Dinner unfolded with the usual charm. Jokes, family stories, photos of their niece. But when Claire stepped out to take a phone call, Julia leaned closer. "So, you never told me how the interview went," she said. He looked up. Her attention felt like a spotlight, warm but blinding. "Almost got the job," he replied. "Almost means no," she said with a faint smile. "But you always make it to the final round. That counts." She laid her hand on the back of his chair, an accidental touch that wasn't an accident. Later, when Mark laughed over the sugar salt disaster, Ethan caught Claire's reflection in the mirror, on the wall, her eyes fixed somewhere past him, focused and distant. In that instant, he realized reflections sometimes live lives of their own. Chapter 3. The Shortcut. It started innocently messages about books, job offers, a photo of a repaired shelf. He sent Julia a picture of his home office. She replied with notes on how to make the space breathe. When he shared his resume, she returned it full of red marks, strict, meticulous. "You undersell yourself," she wrote. "Humility's an economic model," he replied. "No risk, no waste." "I'd call it fear," she answered. He added a smiley. Inside, something shifted. The line they shouldn't cross appeared on an ordinary day. Claire had lost her favorite scarf. Julia called Ethan. "It's here, come by, I'm home alone." He came. The apartment smelled of coffee and damp wool. Julia's old pug snored in the hallway like a small, breathing cloud. She handed him the scarf. Their fingers brushed and lingered a heartbeat too long. "You know this is a terrible idea," he said quietly. "I know," she whispered, "but it's still an idea." He wanted to leave. He didn't. The first kiss was brief, cautious like stepping onto a bridge marked no entry. That made it feel longer, more vivid. No music, no grand words, just the recognition of something that had waited in the dark, patient and inevitable. That night Julia said, "We have no excuses and no prohibitions we actually hear." He stayed silent. Silence, too, can be an answer. Chapter 4. Claire, the warmth of other hands. Meanwhile, Claire was tracing her own quiet orbit. Work had begun to stretch her days thin. Mark's jokes, once charming, now skimmed across her like stones on water never sinking in. Even the small things, crumbs on the table, the hum of the fridge, grated like static. She had a habit she never spoke of. When life felt too heavy, she sought herself in reflections. In shop windows, in the blank glare of her laptop screen, in the pupils of strangers she searched for proof that she still existed. And one day, she found that reflection staring back at her from Mark's eyes. It happened without prelude. After another family dinner, Ethan stayed behind for work emails, and the three of them, Julia, Claire, and Mark, left together. Rain had passed, leaving the air heavy and electric. When they reached Julia's building, Julia ran back to the car for a forgotten umbrella. Claire waited under the awning with Mark. "You okay?" he asked. There was no polite detachment in his tone. It was the kind of question that lands softly between your shoulder blades. "I don't know," she admitted. "Sometimes it feels like I'm answering questions no one asks." Mark listened, not the way people usually do, waiting for a pause to speak, but with full stillness, as if silence itself were part of the conversation. "You deserve warmth," he said finally. Claire smirked, tired. That word always sounds like an ad. "Get warm 50% off this week." Mark smiled. Warmth is just a hand that doesn't slip away. He didn't touch her. But she felt it anyway, the pull of that invisible gravity between two people who both knew better. Their first kiss came weeks later, as quietly as fog rolling in. Claire had come to drop off a book for Julia. Only Mark was home. "She's running late," he said. "Some presentation." They talked idly at the kitchen table about work, travel, and nothing. Then, the silence arrived again, that fragile bridge between restraint and surrender. Claire looked at his hands, steady and calm, and thought, "These are hands that hold, not fix." She leaned toward him, almost balancing herself on the motion. When it happened, there was no rush, no music, just breath and inevitability. They sat afterward with their backs to the window, their reflections faint in the glass, darker than their bodies. Claire whispered, "There's no excuse for this.